She got outscaled, specifically the Maokai got massive, so understandable to see a Maokai ban come through. Just the strongest of the mid-game tanks that can undo a double AD.
Yeah, so there's Morgana actually banned away, not from T-Gun, of course, he's not in this game, but that's been played in 3 different lanes for the Direwolves, so a very strong ban generally. Nidalee going to get another ban away there as well. I have to think that's actually a mid lane ban there for Naya.
Absolutely not. Moya's Nidalee has been really strong. It's been the champion that you can influence games upon. He usually defaults away from Nidalee to the likes of Orianna, which he hasn't found much success on. So taking away a playmaking mid-champion, the bans against Fawn are always interesting because they have those specialist picks. The likes of Diana can often be considered. Aurelia's the ban. It would have been good against Carlos's God, but no Carlos's God today.
Yeah, he's unfortunate. Apparently having some internet issues, so Kulo will step in as a substitute for the top lane. And Kalista, interestingly, the first pick here with LeBlanc was banned away. Aurelia taken away there as well, like you said. And Kalista, the first pick overall. CNJ looking to step up and put the carry pants on.
Really interesting to see all the priority on Kalista across regions. OGN, LCK, LPL, all showing a lot of priority for that champion. Often hits the ban list. Available, so snapped off at first pick.
And CNJ, big Ezreal player, big Caitlyn player as well. They haven't seen too much of her in the OPL for him, but that's how he came up, playing these high mobility AD carry champions that can really carry on. And Kalista, very similar sort of look, but the biggest standout thing for me is that Naya, the big Sejuani player, one of the most successful in the OPL, isn't potentially going to get it here.
And they valued the Kalista over Naya Sejuani. That's the champion. One of the big reasons they picked up that win over the Chiefs was amazing Sejuani play by the master of Sejuani. Playing it before patch 5.5 was Naya. They could have taken it, but the Kalista taken instead means Annie and Sejuani are the answering picks for Direwolves.
Yep, so Annie, Chopper is going to take his Annie again for his last game, which is, I mean, we have to assume it's his best looking support, but of course could go in some other places, wouldn't be too surprised. Soul Strikes, of course, has the Sedge, and Naya has to love 5.5, because all these big tanky jungles, we've already seen him win on Amumu, we've seen him play Sejuani, Zach's in line there as well.
And look, it's not locked in, but Zach saw a lot of quality of life changes in the previous patches, and then they added Cinderhawk, which is just his favorite item. Absolutely, you can stack that health, get that model size huge to soak up all the skill shots. Synergizes so well with Zach, and just with the change to his E, the Elastic Slingshot now having the 1 second knockback instead of the 0.5 second, he's all about CC. His base damages are quite low, but the CC duration increasing just makes him more viable.
Pretty safe and sustainable in the jungle as well, and that will be their pickup here. Zach plus Janna actually, so a very strong core. Again, revolved around protecting this first pick Kalista.
And look, the only Zach we've seen so far in the OPL was, of course, Spooks from the Chiefs, who did great things on that champion, unseating a defensive comp coming out from the enemy. Those are some quick locks, and it's the return of Cassidy.
Yeah, he's back, of course. It went away on holiday for a patch, but returns now. We've already seen Cheese do some disgusting things with this champion in the late game, and could be for Perfection, could be for Sharp, but Cassidy and Lucian are their 3rd and 4th picks.
Doesn't strike me as a Sharp champion. He was slow to come on to Ahri, another one of the more aggressive, brawly mid-champions, usually known for his wave clear. Did fine on the Ezreal, but just couldn't make a big impact in the late game. Look, there's always the potential. We haven't seen a lot of the Kassadin in the top lane on this patch 5.5, but to be honest, we haven't seen a lot of the reworked Kassadin.
No, so we'll have to see if Perfection, who can certainly carry, loves his mages in the top side as well, can he take it in here? Again, Dial's last game here, looking for a win, just to at least finish the season strong, despite having already locked in that 2nd place. But Fornot need to start winning here, want to get up and, you know, at least give themselves some choices when it comes to relegation.
Yeah, that one win would take them to the tiebreaker against Sudden Fear. That would be after all that games. That would be our 5th game of the night. But again, they need 1 game on the board. 2 wins, of course. That would catapult them straight to that 5th spot.
Yeah, and Fortnite flashing some champions. I saw a Katarina just briefly, but it is Sion Orianna. Moya going to go back to an old favorite.
I mean, that's team fight champions right there. Sion, the OPL power pick, open to what? The 6th rotation of picks during the draft is a crazy thing to just say. And Orianna, haven't seen the most successful one, but when it's good, and on patch 5.5, maybe 5.6 when the Athene's buffs come through, we'll see plenty of Orianna. It's patch 5.5, but with all the ball carriers, the long-range ball carrier, of course, is the Zach Orianna. I believe Team Immunity now, the Chiefs were running that back in a couple of years ago, and look at this, another champion that's coming out across the regions. No troll picks here. That's an Urgot.
That is a real-life Urgot that you're seeing on your screens, and that, I believe, should be the mid lane pick here. So people have been doing their homework. Urgot's been picking up popularity in the scenes. And Sharp, we talk about him adapting to new champions. He's adapted quickly this time.
Absolutely. They bring out the Urgot. We wondered if we'd see it today. It made sense. In this particular situation, Orianna going to take a lot of pain in the mid every time that E registers, and we see the Acid Hunters coming through. And now, you thought they had an embarrassment of initiation options before with the Sejuani. throw in the Urgot swap, and you're looking pretty good.
And you know what? Could change over that summoner spell, but I love the exhaust there from Sharp as well. It just screams one thing to me. CNJ, I don't like you very much.
Yeah, lockdown CNJ. No Morgana in this game, so of course, not many options to stop that, the hyperkinetic position reverser. Did I get that one right?
Nailed it.
Gold star for me. But that's the big thing here. They don't have a lot of options to disengage that, barring some CC coming through from Zach and specifically Sion.
Yeah, and before we get into our game, of course, we have to announce, if you've seen it on Twitter, we have a competition running for today as well. So we guys want to give away some RP, so we're looking for first dragons. Tweet a photo of the first dragon in Game 3 and Game 4. That's Immunity versus Legacy and Fauna versus Legacy. 3 and 4, those games only. The first 5 entries with the hashtag IamOPL with the 2 successful looking photos or screenshots win 600 RP.
So a lot of information coming through there. What you have to remember, this is Game 2, so this is for Game 3 and 4, the subsequent games. If you see Atlas on the screen, that's Games 3 and 4. He's the one who'll be piloting those games. You need to have pictures from both the games and the hashtag IamOPL in the same tweet. And of course, the first 5 people, 600 RP, pretty good.
Yeah, just get some free RP, you know, take some shots of the dragon. Hopefully, you're home watching the games anyway, so why not make it a competition and get some RP in there as well. Of course, tweet your answers over to @LOL_Oceania, the Twitter account there, and use that big hashtag IamOPL. So, love to give away some stuff. Hopefully, you guys at home are enjoyed to try and win some RP. But Game 2 here, not for the Dragons quite yet. 3rd and 4th game here. And again, big deal for both teams. Dials looking to play themselves into strength for the playoffs, and Fortnite, it's kind of win or go home.
I mean, the Fortnite comp, of course, the last 2 solo picks in the last 2 sets of picks are really interesting here. The Orianna, they've tried it so many times. It did work for them in the OCS. It hasn't worked for them in the OPL. But with the ball carriers they have, specifically patch 5.5, Zac and the Sion top, okay? It's not the Sion jungle that we saw from Soul Strikes, but still very powerful. Great ball carriers. Could potentially be a massive game if Orianna gets through a mid-game hump and gets towards that death cap and 2-3 items.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big 2-threat comp here for Fauna in general, and that's where they've looked strongest, with the jungler applying good pressure with these very initiation and engage heavy picks. We've got, of course, the Orianna, a big control champion coming from the mid lane, and CNJ, not a hyper carry strictly on Kalista, but just a strong late game carry.
And look, they really prioritized this Kalista. This was the first pick over the likes of Sejuani. They seeded the Sejuani for Kalista. We know that Kalista, it's very hard to classify her. Bloodthirster, Hurricane, that's the usual build we see. Massive 2-item spike. In the late game, you almost want to sell that Hurricane and get a bit more crit and move towards a single target focused build. But you can do so many things in the mid game. And if this Orianna gets going, gets Athene's or Morellonomicon into perhaps the death cap, can match shielding the defensive side with the burst from Shockwave, the initiations from Fortnite could be massive.
And, you know, thinking about that, the big Kalista pick for CNJ, who's honestly carried, or hard-carried games in recent memory. Fortnite's recent wins have certainly come at a lot of his carry potential, really finally blossoming here in the OPL. Late, of course, for him, but better late than never, at least, especially moving into relegation. You have to look at the last pick there for Dialves and think exactly the same thing. We don't like you, CNJ. We want to keep you down. Urgot finally seeing a play in the OPL.
You have to worry for CNJ pastry time. They have a great bot lane against the Kalista. It's going to be the Lucian Annie, so of course the lockdown from Annie and then the Lucian trade. Lucian trades very well with Kalista, especially in early levels before the Martial Poise allows her to dash away from the piercing light coming through from the Q. But it's not just that. You got the Sejuani ultimate, again another tool. Kassadin loves assassinating in the late game with his big AP stacks. And we're not even talking about Urgot. They had the disengage from Janna. They had the Queen of Disengage, but she kind of looks at Urgot. Unless she can get the perfectly timed knock-up, she can't do anything against that ultimate.
And Sharp did change it away. Actually has Ignite, not the exhaust that I looked at him, but that's just a bit more kill potential. He's going to be on top of that AD carry with the ultimate, going to be in the middle of the fight, being tanky, dishing out damage, and really shredding through for the Lucian damage. Just the other nice thing about Urgot is that he actually does add quite a bit of nice armor shred. But we're going to go to the top lane for a second, because Perfection couldn't quite carry on the cannon last game, had a very strong looking performance, but he's got a different purple mage this time, and 5.5 top lane Kassadin.
Yeah, top lane Kassadin against Sion, though. Remember, we talk about Sion a bit like Morgana. He doesn't have a lot of kill potential. Does a lot of harass damage. Of course, that was the target nerf, was the mana cost increased on his Roaring Shout, or Roar of the Slayer, sorry, his E ability. So going to be a little less sustainable in being able to put out that harass, but Kassadin should be able to navigate the laning phase just fine, pick up farm. You just worry for Fortnite. They got 2 damage comp. You mentioned it's Orianna and Kalista, both of them mobile to some degree. But with all the swaps, with all the initiation options, if they're Tornado, I feel like Zelda will have to have an MVP-worthy performance to stop these hyperkinetic position reverses from being channeled. Because one of those threats comes down, it's not a lot of damage on the rest of the members.
No, and that's maybe the other worry, is that the early game especially, neutral or behind, you have to think, in a lot of these lane matchups, the Direwolves are so good at winning games when they get ahead in the laning phase, in particular for the bottom and top sides of the map. So Fauna already committed themselves to trying to play for a later game stage, but the jungle pressure that we have seen from Nia in recent games is not really going to be here on the Zac.
I mean, 2-threat comp and then choosing to opt into the late game against Direwolves, a team who have been so strong in their mid game. They definitely set themselves up with a tough challenge, but they're going to do their best.
Yeah, and there's Sharp's Urgot, actually his first play, and in fact, his first appearance at all in the OPL so far. So the Direwolves are going to come out with something a bit new that's been coming up here, but it is their last game of the season. They want to make an impression moving into their playoff spot here in Fortnite. They need to start finding some wins. They've only got 2 games left, and this is their first one against a very strong opponent.
It was actually Team Immunity's AD carry Uberbro that tweeted, Urgot as a flex pick. What a world we live in. And that's the world we live in, Patreon. It's going to be the Urgot mid. We've seen Urgot AD carry come through from specifically CJ Entus in the LCK. Space has been using that one. Of course, still is very good at anti-carrying, still really punishes AD carry. It's going to be the mid lane, and Orianna hasn't had a high win rate in the OPL. Going to have a hard time against Urgot.
And you know what? You mentioned the anti-carry potential, really giving them a hard time. We already talked about it. CNJ going to have a hard time here, even from the mid lane Urgot, even though they're not in the same lane. So Direwolves moving around trying to get some wards, but they might have been spotted off here. Fortnite, if they want to, can potentially reinvade their own jungle and go for a bit of a team fight, but instead they're going to hang around in that bush for a very long time. They've got the wards down, maybe waiting to see if Direwolves make a mistake.
We could see a titanic tussle here. Soul Strikes walks ever so close to what was a death brush if there ever was one. But it looks like they will not meet.
This might give Fortnite an opportunity to 3-buff their opponent. So Nia going to steal away some of this. CNJ wanting the lane swap away from the Anti-Lucian lane. So it makes a lot of sense that they've dedicated so much into getting the swap. They've initiated the swap. They've got it successfully. Nia's going to get the perfection though. We'll see what's happening. And Nia going to get a little low on that first kill. Wants Smiteless so bad and is going to get it.
So you might wonder, what were Direwolves looking for from their early invades? Notably, they put a ward down at the Wolves and the Raptors. They were looking for Sion to pick up that level 1, or that quick level 2, you know, suiciding to a camp. They've stopped that potential, but they have given away a buff. But Sejuani, she can skill a dash at level 2. She'll be able to get to this red buff and steal it away. So it will be a traditional 2-buff start. And if anything, Fortnite lose the most because they don't get that crucial level 2 advantage on the Sion.
Yeah, so no 3-buff right now, but instead they'll keep the top half of the map safe, and that's where they want to focus a lot of their early attention. We talk about it all the time, but vertical jungling means you're trying to protect that half of the map, and CNJ, very important man to protect on the Fortnite side.
On the other side, though, 2v1 perfection as Cassidy. Cassidy never been happy in a 2v1. Has more tools to CS under turret than he used to a few reworks ago, but just won't want to opt into this lane matchup. At the moment, it's a 1v1. You still give the advantage in the early levels. Definitely to CNJ.
Yeah, and Annie's already rotated in, so Chuffer maybe taking a bit of a leaf out of T-Gun's book there from their first series here. Will roam in, maybe even look to apply some pressure. There's no other support down here. We've actually swapped away, so CNJ all of a sudden, he's going to be trapped in a 1v2.
And Zaldo, he's actually back, and he's going to return to the top lane. It's going to be level 1 very late into the game. You worry, actually, if there's a level advantage for Chuffer and Perfection, the burst damage coming through from Annie cannot be negated, even from the support position.
Yeah, and that stun is almost always available at any level that Annie's at. So Chuffer, especially from level 2, will be ready to go if he wants to get aggressive. And Perfection, the best thing for him is getting all this free time now to CS.
Absolutely. He's got 13 CS to 4, and those 4 aren't from the jungle minions. That's just from entering lane is the Sion. So early game rotations, it looked like they were going to go well for Direwolves. You'll take it if you're Fortnite, but the person who suffered the most is definitely Sion.
Yeah, so Kulo, actually the substitute player here for Fortnite, playing possibly the whole evening, at least for this game, possibly for the second as well. Carlos has been a shining light for his team in so many ways, and Kulo has to step up very quickly in a time where his team, even as a sub, really needs to win.
And who knows how often he's scrimmed with this team, how much practice he has in these offlane matchups. And a 1v1 matchup, Sion against Lucian, definitely not something you see in solo queue every day. So he's going to try and do his best, but we can't expect the carry performances we've seen out of Carlos's god.
No, and King is a laner, not for the faint of heart, that's for sure. He's so aggressive in any matchup, whether it's a standard 2v2 or any sort of 1v1. He just always wants to kill you.
mean, the laning is going to be the big focus because we don't expect big ganks coming out till level 6. CNJ's got a lot of Ren stacks in, though.
Chuffer, though, actually also quite squishy. Going to take too much damage. You have to think, Ward going to go down. Chuffer will hop away. CNJ needs a little bit more, and a beautiful Pierce gets first blood to Kalista.
Very nice with the Pierce. But in the mid lane, Soul Strikes forces the flash from Moya. So now already on the back foot is the Orianna. Ping's level 5 to match the levels, but when that ultimate comes through, you worry for Orianna.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Orianna. Reasonably neutral in a lot of her matchups, but when she gets ganked, especially without her flash, it's a pretty easy picking for a jungler, especially one with so many tools like Sejuani.
Yeah, we were expecting fairly low jungle pressure, but already a big gank comes through for Soul Strikes to blow the flash on Orianna. We'll talk a bit more about that Orianna versus Urgot matchup as it develops, but just watching the top lane, CNJ and Zaldo trying to power down this turret from perfection.
Yeah, changing it up a bit, realize with Chuffer rotating so well and so early that they probably can't freeze this laner against perfection, so instead going to opt to try and get an early gold advantage and take out the turret here, but Kalista might be forced back here with Chuffer returning to the lane. Level 3 now. Ignite's still available. Quite scary here. And CNJ, not that much health here. Zelda actually quite low as well. Immediately backs away. Now Perfection. Wishing he had the ulti ready to go, but Zelda will stay safe for now.
Yeah, the ulti, Ignite, a couple more levels. He would have taken any of them Perfection, but the result, no kill is Naya.
Very nice flash force there in the mid. Sharp immediately getting out from under it. Maybe even lining up something with the ultimate ready for Urgot, but that will give Moya level 6 safely, and Naya reapplying some pressure.
Absolutely. Both these tank junglers, usually known for their level 6 pressure, putting out some good early pressure. Having a look over at Naya, seeing what he's maxing. Still probably going to be the Elastic Slingshot. It is 3 points in that ability. Gives you the most gank pressure. Doesn't really hurt your clear too much. So probably a pretty good fight. Cooler takes a lot of damage.
Yeah, has to be careful. King even might get a kill. Does have his flash down the heel. He's going to go in flash immediately, but King is going to follow flash and will get the kill. Cooler will run after him, but King will just wait out the time.
I feel like Cooler was a bit too optimistic trying to hold on to his flash. Didn't even have mana to potentially apply any of his abilities or slows. Early flash may have dissuaded King, but the result's a kill for the AD Academy.
And you can see the difference in the top lane matchup, 46-24, up for Perfection versus Kulo's Scion. But even in the bottom, 55-35 now is King. Gonna get low here. CNJ will flash forward, wants the kill so bad. Actually has a build water cutlass all ready to apply in. Needs one more order. The Pierce just misses, and CNJ not gonna get it. Might even die, actually. Heal used aggressively, and King will finally go down.
Wow, it looked like he was gonna suicide to the turret, but still had heal available. Smart from CNJ, tried to turn around, did King, but Fortnite, they do pick up their kill. A lot of resources put in, but finally takes King down a pick.
And I can tell why CNJ wanted this Kalista so bad. Clearly very comfortable on the pick as Chuffer with no flash is approaching the lane, but does have the stun prime. Naya trying to get in there as well. Chuffer though with the ward down, wants the stunner to CNJ, will find it as Sharp is moving in as well, but Chuffer taking too much damage. Naya turns around though. Chuffer will be safe, but finally going to go down. Sharp going to get low, but Moya's in with the ball to protect him. Now Sharp could be in trouble there as the ball's going to spot him off. The tornado will whip in, and Naya gets a double kill.
CNJ doesn't die. Sharp had ultimate available, chose not to use it, had the mana. Feel like it was being a bit too optimistic. He registered his E, perhaps thought the Acid Hunters would pick up the kill, but get the swap and it gives you those bonus defensive resists to allow you to fight for longer. Direwolves, bit of a brain explosion there, and the advantage is to Fortnite.
Yeah, Fortnite going to get this first dragon as well. Kalista, all too easy for the secure with the help of Naya's Smite. And again, a lot of early advantages. First dragon goes down much quicker than our first series here between Immunity and the Wolves, and Fortnite 4-1 up and kills, now a dragon up as well.
I mean, the only thing Direwolf have to be optimistic about in the early game is that Perfection is doing excellent CSing. We have a bit of time to pause and appreciate his ability to pick up all those CS under turret. 56-42, while not a big advantage, as Kassadin versus Scion. Kassadin getting a 14 CS advantage is going to be significant into the later game.
I mean, it might seem like a small thing, but it's all in the name for Perfection. His mechanics absolutely flawless at the best of times. So again, on a carry champion can look to carry his team, but Kulo fighting back now. Good damage there with that Q, and 5.5 Scion doesn't mess around with the Q damage.
And look, Scion's still Scion, doesn't take a lot of damage. The base values on Perfection's kit aren't that high to begin with, so you don't want to opt into any trades. He's forced out of lane before he can actually finish a big item. Doesn't even have enough for the blasting one towards the Rod of Ages, so look, effective play by the Scion.
And, you know, has the Catalyst going to actually pick up an Amp Tome just for some flat AP, but that will delay the Rod of Ages by that much more. CNJ's return to the bottom side. Blade of the Ruin King, I mentioned the early Cutlass already. That actually got him the next kill onto King, but he's going for an early Blade, not the Bloodthirster.
I mean, I do like the Blade Rush. I believe he's done this once before. To be honest, I would prefer the single target build coming through from CNJ this game because he has a lot of defensive utility coming from Moya in the late game. So he's going to have a lot of shielding coming through. Tristana Tristana Kalista will be very similar. Sorry, Tristana Orianna, one of the more famous shielding comps, be similar with Kalista Orianna. And just single target to be able to kill all these tanks. There's a big tank lineup coming through from Direwolves. Going to be armor stacking from multiple members. Remember, Frozen Heart is a core item for mid Urgot, despite the fact that he's a damage carry.
Yeah, I mean, Urgot's such a weird champion. Let's actually take a little bit of time to go through. I mean, what is it, Papa Smith, about Urgot that just seen such a strong resurgence in play?
So the big buff that came through from Urgot that sees the increased play is the Terra Capacitator. That's the shield for you watching at home. Got a mana ratio. So just in the natural build, you always try and fit in a Mana Moon, you know, eventually a Mirror Mana, and the Frozen Heart. You do build those mana items, so you're getting an extra, basically doubling of the shield from the mana. So that's a significant amount of extra early tankiness. And Urgot, he's always been a strong laner. There's a reason why back in Season 1, he was a frequently Sin mid lane champion. And with those little buffs, the fact that he can anti-carry so well, the fact that the ultimate's so unique, the ability to reposition someone, get those extra stats really helps with your trading. That's the reason why he started to come back into the meta. The issue, oh, we're actually going to see Kulo.
That was hilarious. The Kulo ulted up, but now we'll get ulted by Soul Strike's Perfection. Gonna dive back in. A good double knock up there on the Q, but Kulo nowhere left to go, but not enough damage left here, and he'll get away safely. Meanwhile, Naya, who is camping the brush, hoping someone was gonna walk down, will force King to use his ulti just to push them off the turret.
The solo potential coming through from a Kassadin, but pre-Rod of Ages, not going to be a lot of damage follow-up, despite the good initiation from Soul Strikes. They're going to push aggressively, though. They want this turret.
Yeah, and they should give it over here. Have to give it up. Do the Direwolves here, and the first turret will fall to Fortnite. Fortnite getting all of the first this game. First Blood, I believe. First Tower and first Dragon. Things looking good, and that gold advantage creeping up now. 2,000 gold ahead already.
And 2,000 gold is very significant, and it's going to just grow with how these lanes are going. Sion getting free farm in the top lane, closing down the CS advantage that Kassadin has, as I believe we move into a pause.
We do have a quick pause here, but kind of funny to see Zach actually counter-jungling with Sejuani as well. And we talked about them not leaving Sedge open. Fortnite very comfortable with their tank junglers. Certainly we've seen so much of that from Naya. Even Wukong going in for big initiation. Loves these sort of engaged style champions. Makes sense to leave it open when you know Zach's quite good as well. And I think you can tell just from the matchup, he knows how to play against Sejuani, maybe more than anything else that helps him here.
Absolutely. If you're known for a champion, you should know how to play against that champion. You're the one that's felt the frustration of counterpicks, of tough matchups in the past. So you should be, you know, just with a few little tweaks. It didn't change anything about how Sejuani played. She was just better at her role than she was before. But the Zach does a lot of the similar things. Of course, has to get into melee range for his CC. But it's easy to get into melee range when you have a 1300 range gap closer like the Elastic Slingshot. Just coming back to the Urgot, though, because again, Urgot's the unique pick. First time in the OPL, just blasting through across the scenes. One of the issues I actually see for Urgot in this matchup is that Urgot doesn't have a lot of wave clear. Wave clear is not his big thing. He still functions similar to Ezreal in that he can just auto-attack the wave a lot, not quite the range of Ezreal. But against a high wave clear champion like Orianna, especially if she starts to get to level 9, level 10, gets, you know, more points in her Q and W to get instant wave clear, Urgot won't be able to counter-push the wave or really punish Orianna if she tries to go and pick up other camps. Okay, it's Orianna, so she's not going to be necessarily roaming, but you could potentially push in the wave, go pick up Raptors, go pick up Wolves, start to farm yourself up to specifically the death cap after your 20% CDR. And without wave control, Urgot, he still does some good things, but he loses that potential of winning lane and being that pseudo-tank in the late game.
I mean, it's just not the same we've seen from so many other mid laners with their wave clear, with their own potential, sort of anchored to that mid lane. So makes a lot of sense. Sharp, though, if you can out CNJ, and that's his big target here, that's all he really needs to do in these team fights. And Direwolves, they've got lots of strong engage here, but Fortnite fighting very well in the early stages, and it's almost like the other game we just saw the Wolves lose in a very long marathon game there of 60-plus minutes. Behind early game once again.
I mean, the other advantage that Urgot brings is he has a very low item ceiling. On Urgot, you pick up your Mana Mune into Mirror Mana. That's such a big item because, of course, Acid Hunter being a single target spell procs that Mirror Mana effect, does big damage. You get the Frozen Heart and the Brutalizer. You got 40% CDR. He's a bit like Rumble in that respect, is that he doesn't get much stronger after picking up the Mirror Mana, a Brutalizer, and Frozen Heart. Okay, you can pick up the Black Cleaver for a bit of extra armor shred. He does a lot of things for your AD carry because he gets 20% armor reduction from his E ability, and he also can build a Black Cleaver quite happily, fits into his build, doesn't put him over the cooldown reduction camp because, of course, only 10% CDR coming from that item. But he doesn't get much stronger in terms of damage, just really transitions into a tank in the late game with all the resist that he gets from his ultimate. So he'll be doing a lot of supportive things, but need to make good use of that ultimate. No Morgana means, theoretically, could be a really big factor.
Yeah, I mean, them do secondary carries, I guess, here. So Lucian fine in the late game. Cassidy particularly scary as well. I mean, Perfection maybe a little bit more behind LCS than he'd like. Rod of Ages not quite there yet. We're almost at the 12-minute mark in the game it's currently paused at. So not quite there yet. Wants it in a couple minutes to really get efficiency out of the buy so it stacks up in, kind of in time at a reasonable window. But he can make a big carry performance for his team. Being behind against the Orianna, Zach, Kalista team always feels quite scary, but it's not too bad for Dials. They just need to, make some more plays. Maybe just get some of the early game together because, honestly, at the start of the last game and this one, they've looked a bit sloppy.
I mean, the other thing you have to worry about is that we're talking about the potential engage coming through from the Orianna-Zac combination. 1,300 range gap close with the maxed out elastic slingshot with the ball for a potential huge shockwave. Urgot's a short-range champion. He's going to have to be really careful.
Great ult there as well, actually, from Ori, forcing Sharp's flash once again there. Zach had lined up the slingshot but couldn't complete it. But again, they'll just rotate in for some pressure. CNJ hasn't gone back to shop just yet, but rotating in just for tower damage here. Kallista's surprisingly good at tower damage just because Marshall Boys keeps you quite safe. And Soul Strike's going to take a lot of poke there as well. Rand will come through after the pierce. So going to force them back and might give them just enough wiggle room to get onto the tower and take another one.
And we just mentioned in a summary of Urgot, he doesn't have a lot of wave clear. Neither does the jungler here, Soul Strike, unless he gets in melee range and can activate his W. So, I mean, what's Urgot to do? He just has to give away the turret.
I mean, Chuffer doesn't want to use his wave clear to take it out. King not available to use his ultimate. It's even on cooldown if he was there. So we'll do a bit of extra damage. Perfection will clean out the top side as well. But 3 outer turrets felled by Fortnite, and the next dragon back in a minute 20.
The wave clear in general from Direwolves with this last bit Urgot is woefully poor. It's only really Lucian that can do wave clear, and then he's a fairly short range carry. He will struggle to that barring his ultimate. So a bit Ezreal-esque despite not having a cooldown reduction mechanic for that ultimate. Perfection, in the late game gets enough AP. Sure, he can vomit, which is effectively what his E does, and take down a wave, but it's not ideal, and that's why Fortnite have already opened this 3-0 turret lead.
And Cooler, the sub here, playing, of course, for Fortnite, at least for this game. A very fast Warmog's armor has been completed.
The health meta is here, Page Your Time. Warmogs, the Cinderhulk, everyone's coming up there and stacking up those health values.
Yeah, and interestingly, Naya actually has a Stalker's Blade, so not going for the Trailblazer for extra clear. Actually, one of the extra CC.
I mean, Zach has so much consistent AoE damage to camps with his W ability doing percentage max health. You don't need to go for the Ranger's Tailblaze. Almost too much AoE clear, not getting a lot out of the purchase. I actually don't mind the Stalker's Blade just for that extra true damage. You usually take attack speed runes and auto attack a lot of Zach. You have a lot of gap close and movement speed, so you can get that in, but Chilling Smite's fine.
I mean, it makes sense because the other thing, I guess, is what was the big problem with Chilling Smite after they nerfed it? Was the range thing. Well, Zach always going to be in range. Soul Strike's in trouble. Their Q's back in, but Zaldum and CNJ on top. Shuffer coming in. A great ulti there coming through, and a quick double kill. Or quick 2 kills, I should say, for Direwolves.
And the one thing Direwolves do have is Wombo AoE CC and 2 members grouped up. Find 4 enemies. Nothing they can do. This will be the dragon for Direwolves. Doesn't get them on the turret score, but they'll take the dragon.
Naya wants to go in. They've got the ball set up there as well for the ulti.
Wow.
Does get in. Zach steals the dragon. Let's bounce pop now as well as Chopper. Might even just get killed in a 1v3 situation. Gets swapped away. Naya will actually not go down. The heal coming in. The shield just enough. King wants to take him out, but Moya zones them off, and an amazing steal by Fortnite.
And they can't even take down his passive. The last auto attack would have done it, but Zach, you can play so aggressively when you have a revive passive on a tank, and he still got it.
He does indeed, and even in the top side, Sion was forcing Perfection away, meaning he couldn't teleport down to that dragon fight, crucially. Cooler has a couple ways to snare it off, and let's see that again.
So the Wombo comes through, just pick it up right at the end. So it fell to 100 health, did the dragon. He's just trying to bounce around just because he wanted to get an exit kill on Chuffer, realizes he can escape. Watch how low he falls. One more auto attack would have been enough. King honestly thought with the fadeaway defensive move that he got the kill, but nope, couldn't do it.
No, and CNJ back to the bottom, does have his blade finished up. He's going to clear out a couple of minion waves, and Fortnite, 2 dragons to 0. No, Dials really wanted the first one, their first one. Thought they had it with the great AoE Wombo, but Naya steals it away.
I'm worried about what Naya will be able to do on this Zac. Now has an Aegis, that will help. I believe might have already had it at the previous fight, but still a significant purchase. These initiations, I mentioned it before, I mean, Urgot's 425 range. He's not Ezreal, of course, who's 550 range. So his auto attacks are risky. A lot of short-range champions. There's no one with more than 500 range on this Direwolves team. So when you've got such long-range gap close, these shockwaves, it could be a 5-man shockwave because just the way that all these attack ranges work, they're going to be very heavily grouped on the Direwolves side.
Yep, the one exception, of course, Annie, but not very helpful, unfortunately, as an auto attacker.
But to be honest, she's still going to be at the front of the fight with her other people looking for a flash Tibbers.
Exactly.
So just with the way that their natural positioning works, you can just see the picture-perfect 5-man shockwave. So often talked about in whispers almost, but can be so devastating.
And you know, they've got Kulo for backup engage as well. They've got plenty of peel with the Janna for C&J, who's mobile enough already with such a strong front line to support that late-game carry potential. Fortnite have drafted themselves a great comp. I think most notably, it's a Fortnite comp. It suits them. It's big. Two-threat. They actually love playing two threats, especially with Orianna. Moya's finally off to a good start in the champion, even in CS here against a fairly neutral lane with the Urgot. Morellonomicon done. Zondi's potentially on the way. Naya looking strong with a Locket already completed now as well. Everything's coming up Fortnite, and it has been for the last few weeks.
But this is the first time Moya's got basically a free lane in terms of pressure on this Orianna. We remember, of course, the Legacy versus Fortnite game where solo kill and transitional kill after transitional came through from Choo-Choo's Syndra. Urgot just can't pressure Orianna, doesn't have the wave clear to do it, and it's not the early game skirmish junglers of patch 5.4 and previously. It's not Lee Sin getting in her face, it's a Sejuani who's more gated around cooldowns and level 6. So for once been able to farm up, and it could be massive.
Teleport though coming in for perfection, wants to try and make it happen. Ulti already in for Sejuani, big lockup there coming in for the ulti, moves back around, Moya flashes out, Naya on a rampage now if the ulti's away, just with a bit of style, still with the passive cooler, knocks up King who's going to go down next to Zaldo. C&J getting a little low, but they'll keep chasing in. Naya's going to move back in. A great Chillings might their tag sharp, but they can't move in for another kill, but they'll take another turret.
And Perfection looks for the exit kill on Moya on the minimap, isn't able to get it, and Urgot overextends for damage, doesn't pay for it.
I mean, Naya, even if you get him, it's just a passive at this point. They can't keep chasing with the kills. Naya, with plenty of shields and blobs being picked up, getting so much health back already. Look at him there, pick up 2 blobs, and just almost go back to 25% health. Sharp gets exhausted and knocked up. He's going to go down as Naya gets another kill on his Zac, and Dials just throwing themselves at Zac.
I've been thoroughly underwhelmed with Sharp's Urgot. It's a new champion. Okay, you're getting used to it. Probably hasn't got more than maybe 20 games on it because it's only been in the meta for, what, 10 days, 7 days now? But that's another fight where he doesn't find an option to use his level 2 ultimate. With the range increasing, just the resist to get yourself into a fight. Use it to get into the fight. It's one of those cooldowns where you don't want to keep it for the right moment. You want to use it where possible on a priority target to give yourself a position to fight with the extra resist. It's just favorable trading with the extra 60, 80 armor and magic resist. Again, doesn't use it and just dies on the backside of a fight that Direwolves have already lost.
Yeah, Perfection now level 11. That was not the case when they started that last fight. And I mean, the tanks are doing pretty significant damage actually. Cinderhawk plus Zac's just general AoE. It's not a lot of damage, but it's consistent damage, and he's 5-0-1 now.
And Moya and Naya, we always talk about this duo. They just don't die, especially this game where both of them fall down to single target health. What I want to draw your attention to is how important it was that the passive wasn't blown by Naya in that previous engage. The difference between Zac's pressure without that passive up and with the passive up is night and day, because you can just go in and do ridiculous turret dives, gap close into 5 people, look for the CC, because you know that you do have that option to get back in. As a tank, okay, it's not the worst that you died, but you can just be aggressive knowing that your revive passive is up, and it still hasn't gone down in 20 minutes of play.
Zaldo actually getting Fates called in, but Naya off to the side, looking to go in there. We'll clear out the ward instead. Very good ward from Direwolves. More turret pressure coming in. Dragon not quite back yet, 45 seconds on the next one. The Dials are grouped up. Perfection still getting farmed. Does now have his Rod of Aether's completed. Had it for a few minutes now. So charging up, but a power trough is not where Dials really want to be sitting at this stage.
So actually able to interrupt Naya's bounce.
Oh, good damage onto Chuffer as well. The knockup will connect there. Tornado coming in for an extra one, and Moya getting locked up for a bit, but Naya just going in. Let's bounces all over him. Finally gets ulted back in, but he's still fairly tanky. Soul Strikes gets tagged by the Shockwave, and Naya still not dead.
Yeah, only a one-man Shockwave, but I was still looking for the fight. That's the passive down.
Soul Strikes did finally kill him, but Kulo trying to zone them off. King gets knocked up. Kulo now with the ball on top of him. King going to take quite a lot of damage as Zaldo resets with his ulti. They'll protect the blobs, and the passive finally down, but Naya's still alive.
The short range is really punishing them. King tried to get in range to do damage to the bloblets, but 500 range AD carry was too risky. The tank's still alive, and Naya just doesn't die.
I mean, lots of cooldowns used though, so Dials might be able to take away the Dragon away, but Fortnite are clearing out the Scuttle Crab. They want it here. They feel confident, despite the fact that lots of ultis have been burned, and Hellfire is a little lower than they might like here, but they've started off Naya just face tanking it at 1/3 health.
The consistent damage is higher from Fortnite. The cooldowns are down for Dials with their big initiation, but they still want to fight.
CNJ has to stay in Ren range, though. Has to be a little bit careful. Naya with his smite ready to go. CNJ can see him diving back in. He actually lost all of his Ren stacks, and Soul Strike's going to come in. He does steal the Dragon. That gets knocked up, though, and will get killed off. You have to think CNJ going to get that next kill as Kulo's going to chase him with the help of Zaldo's passive Sharp. Going to be looked at now as the next one hit. Pops his W there. Will be shielded up, but the exhaust is down. The slow comes in as well. Sharp gets knocked up by a NATO, and CNJ gets a double.
I did see the flash used by Kulo. Didn't need to use it because, of course, the Fate's Call was up for another knock-up. It secures the kill. They can keep pushing. King's healthy. Doesn't have ultimate, though, for safe ranged wave clear.
And there's so much dive. Cooler with the ulti back up. Sion more than happy to dive away. Perfection actually trying to go in, but actually use the ulti. Does tag Perfection. Gets him knocked back in there as well. Zaldo a little low to King, but CNJ going to dive in aggressive. Little too far forward, though. Goes down to King, and Kulo now could be chased down. Moya low as well. Chuffer's actually flanked off around the side as Perfection gets another kill now. Kulo already with his ulti. Can't get away. Stunned up by Annie as well. Will turn to the W. A massive knock-up, but a double kill for Perfection. Going to chase away King, but Lucian should be okay. Has to be a little careful, but Kulo, that health bar running out in the Wolves, get much needed kills.
To say that was an overstay from Fortnite is an understatement, to say the least. They did not need to be there. They have positional-based champions like Orianna who can't afford to be flanked, and Chuffer was actually able to flank the team, get the exit kill on CNJ. They didn't need to do that, Fortnite. They're going to try and keep them away from the turret with this Let's Bounce.
Yeah, Naya pops his ulti, going to go in again. Decent damage they're coming through with, especially with the turret helping them out. Zelda will join in, but no additional damage here to help out. Naya will keep them off. He's got the slingshot, but does not pull the trigger. They'll save their mid-turret for now. In fact, Dials don't have a single turret yet. So
the most important factor for Fortnite to take away from that fight isn't necessarily it's the overstay, it's having wards on your flanks. As a double threat comp, if we ever see the flank coming through from, whether it's Soul Strikes with the Glacial Prison, whether it's even Urgot with the swap, or Annie with the Tibbers, one of those threats goes down. There is not enough damage, especially as we move along in this game, for Fortnite to win a fight. They need to ward their flanks, get pink wards down if possible, but just ward their flanks and ensure they're fighting on their own terms. The initiation needs to come through Zac and Orianna, not from the enemy team.
And at least for them, some major items have been completed now as well. Frozen Heart done now for Kulo. Very tanky in tandem with that Warmogs. We talk about the Locket already done. Warden's Mail in there for Naya as well, who's building up some of those tank stats. Zonya's almost complete for Moya, has the components, just needs the recipe. And that Hurricane done now for CNJ, so the big 2-item spike has arrived.
Absolutely, and this is the time to fight when you have those 2 items down. That's why they're grouping. They're still looking for a fight, but smartly see one ward come down from Moya. Keep those flanks warded for now, because one of your threats goes down, you've only got health and armor and magic resist to show for your other members.
CNJ going to hop around. Lifesteals quite a lot in minion waves there with the Runans helping him out. It does have to go away now. People chasing him in. CNJ sort of caught up there, but the rest of Fauna ready to go. Naya not around, actually zoning off Urgot, it seems like at this stage, although maybe caught out, does get ulted away, but that might actually save him. Does Elastic Slingshot away. Chuffer doesn't have a stun to follow up or doesn't want to flash if he does, and Naya will walk away there.
Now Kulo is very aggressively positioned. We might see the engage.
Oh, CNJ actually gets ulted there. Big kill there for Perfection, and he's the only one to get ulted by Orianna. Kulo has to run away. Chuffer though flashing in for the stun. Wants a support kill as the Monsoon comes down, but it's not enough. Kulo next to fall there as the rest of the team collapses onto him. A triple kill for Perfection. That's bad news for Fortnite.
And Fortnite once again didn't need to be in that position. They'd already taken out the outer bot lane turret for Direwolves. They have so many pink wards in the Dragon area. You can see on the minimap there 3 pink wards, but they weren't fighting around those pink wards. They were fighting in areas that Direwolves had wards down in, and this should actually be the Baron for Direwolves.
I mean, they're going to at least start it here. Pink ward goes down, not even interested in the Scuttle Crab.
Naya has Smite coming soon.
He might go for another steal. Soul Strikes does not have his available, actually, so has to be a bit careful. Zac will rotate in around. Smite is back available, but Baron just too low at this point. Not going to be there in time to steal it away, and Urgot will claim that one for his team. Oh, actually been caught as on Naya. Forced to use his ulti to get out of the way. That Tenacity helping out just a tad there. Will move out of the way. No Smite steal forthcoming, in the Direwolves get the first Baron of the game.
A lot of eerie comparisons to the previous game, but King's caught.
Yeah, Naya now getting caught as he goes back in with a slingshot. Zaldo with plenty of CC to follow in, and CNJ just needs to find some minutes to hop to. Exhaust down is on Naya, going to flash forward. Q there for the slow. E for a knock-up, and Moya gets that kill.
Okay, it's important to take down King, but of course the Baron buff does mean a lot of minion wave supremacy coming through from Direwolves. The parallels to the previous games in terms of overstays is coming once again. It's the Baron that comes through again from Fortnite's over-aggression after they'd already taken down an objective. It's so difficult to fight with these 2-threat comps because, again, one of them gets deleted. And there's actually a point that High from Cloud9 discussed. They were dissecting a previous loss they'd had where their jungler was the person to get the snowball in the early game, and they just misjudged their damage because he had bought tank items rather than damage. In this case, a lot of the extra gold, it's on the jungler who's built tank items. The Sion's very tanky. Their tankiness is there, but their damage is gated around 2 members who are doing fine, but not necessarily got the most gold on their team, so they have to watch and choose the right team fights, or you see the results.
Yeah, and that Dragon is back up in 40 seconds, so our next team fight is coming here. You can see Dials just off screen there on your minimap, already clearing out vision in the area. CNJ going to hop around, will be able to take away the Krugs nice and easily. Does have an extra Vamp Scepter, so big lifesteal build coming up, probably the Bloodthirster third there for all of that protection and lifesteal. Very safe build, does good consistent damage, but if you get locked up like we've seen from the last few fights or just caught out of position, the Dials have got plenty of tools.
I guess my takeaway from this build is the Bloodthirst is kind of a surrogate QSS. QSS makes a lot of sense in this build against the Glacial Prison, against the Urgot swap, but maybe in a double threat comp feels he doesn't have the luxury to spend 1250 gold at this point on a tank item, or in this case a magic resist item, rather than going for damage. I think the QSS, just because, again, suppression from Urgot, the only way to deal with it is that item as the flash comes away from Sharp.
Yeah, Sharp forced out again. Here is Kulo diving in, sped up there by Orianna as Sharp might be caught out here. Raw will connect there for the slow. There's the knockup following through as well. Naya now going to join in with his CC. Moya actually going to get swapped in, but not enough there. Sharp gets knocked out before it can complete, actually, and he is going to go down. It's Kulo that gets the kill, but Zaldo in the back going to look to go down. Perfection dove straight in the middle. Zaldo still alive. There was Naya's popped his ulti, soul strikes. They're going to get knocked up as Perfection gets the next heal. They're trying to chase down the Kassadin, but Shuffer coming in for a bit of CC. Moya out of mana, does pop the Zonya's soul strikes. Fairly tanky, but King coming in for cleanup. Massive damage there onto Moya as Naya dives back in onto King. Almost takes him out. Does get it as Kulo flashes forward with the W, though. Naya now popping into Bloblet's going to go down next. Kulo trying to do some consistent damage. Actually throws Tibbers away through the rest of the Dials, but there's no one left here. CNJ goes down to Chuffer. Kulo will eventually fall here, and this will complete the ace for the Direwolves.
Chuffer's the one who assassinates CNJ. Consistent damage is a word you brought up. Not a lot of consistent damage on Fauna. It's actually only CNJ that does a lot of consistent damage. Moya does decent things, but of course has cooldowns to work around. CNJ was forced out of that fight so early without the QSS to get the early reposition. And the tanks, they fought for a long time. They CC. They even took King down, but they just don't have the damage to win a fight. And Perfection, if there's one thing Kassadin does in the late game, Perfection's just sneakily got to 7-0-3 Kassadin on the back of the 10-stack Rod of Ages and the Zonyas. Consistent damage from the Kassadin, definitely present.
Yes, and Perfection, we kind of talked him up here in this game as having to put a big carry performance on for his team, and so far delivering, at least by the scoreline. King, though, creeping up as always the primary carry for the Dials there. 3-4-9, again, a very King-esque scoreline. Lots of CS, though, and big items completed already.
Items haven't come through necessarily to Sharp, though. He's gone full armor penetration build, still missing the Frozen Heart that actually will be doing a lot of work this game for the Direwolves team, dealing with CNJ's consistent damage. He's the one who most naturally builds that item, but it might actually be a Sejuani, given the items he's already picked up.
Well, I mean, it looks like it there, but someone has to finish it. No dragon to fight around, so... Oh, never mind, it's right there. I tell a lie. Fortnite are on top of the dragon.
Definitely on top of it. 2-1 is the Dragon advantage. Soul Strikes, the Glacial Prison is looking good.
He's going to line it up. Actually, just misses. Only hits the Dragon there, and Kulo will zone them away. Rend is more than enough to take this away. No steal forthcoming. The fourth Dragon there for Fortnite. Talisman's been popped. Kulo diving in massively there with all the speed in front of him, but only finds Soul Strikes Sharp. Off to the side, will get spotted away. Naya going to initiate on top of him there. Does not have the ball, though, and Naya a little too far forward. King going to keep chasing him in there as around the side. Shuff is actually looking for another flank. Naya going to get low. Their shields are so massive. Those slingshots away. Soul Strikes tries to get in, but the ultimate comes into Perfection. Does find the next line. Fade's Skull popped as well. Knockup is coming through, but Perfection's uses Zonies. There's so much damage here coming through, but Fortnite not enough. CNJ will go down, and Perfection is legendary.
The crazy thing about that fight is that the damage dealers from Fortnite were not zoned by a tank. They were zoned by the fact that Perfection hadn't committed to the fight yet. They could see him in vision. He didn't use his Rift Walk for a long time, but that led to Naya being split away, being killed without actually being involved in the fight, despite the fact that he has all that important consistent CC in a fight. And Fortnite, they just waited so long to pull the trigger that Direwolves did it, and they're going to get an inhibitor for it.
Yeah, they're going to get the tower, and the inhib should follow after this as well. No, actually back away. Yeah, are going to be safe. Perfection even teleporting to the top side of the map just to take the minion wave that's built up there on the top side of the map. So Dials want to make sure safe. That mini wave exploded there to Perfection Z, and the Frozen Heart is done and is on Soul Strikes.
A lot of scary things to say when discussing Perfection. 516 AP. He's got 13,100 gold. His lane opponent has 8,800 gold. It's a massive difference. We actually get an instant replay. Thank you very much to the production team. That was an instant 300 gold each.
Yeah, 6 slow-mo there as well, but that mini wave just died so swiftly, and it's all the AP that is built up. You mentioned his gold there. That's unbelievable.
That's 4,500 advantage for Perfection. And the crazy thing is, the first time I checked his score after the early game, it was 7-0-3, and he's only going from there.
He is. I mean, even despite the fact that he's that far ahead of Kulo as far as gold goes, he's 1,000 gold ahead of King, the other biggest member of his team up right now. Dials actually have a pretty significant gold lead. It's crept up fairly slowly, and 7,000 gold, more than half of that is Perfection.
So much gold on Perfection. And on a hyper carry like Kassadin, okay, he has less range on his Rift Vault, but it's a lower cooldown, so there's a trade-off involved there, even in that discussion when you're talking about whether it's a true nerf or not. Kassadin goes back, shops, going to buy a straight Void Staff, because why not? And I just don't know how you win a 2-threat comp here when you just can't peel away Kassadin. That's the crazy thing. Nothing's changed about him as a champion. When he gets in melee range, Janna, eat your heart out. She's one of the few champions you just can't peel away.
I mean, Lysandra was such a big pick for so long because of Janna's rise, and Kassadin, much the same stuff there as well, as far as really hard unpeelable engage. Go Chuffer, he's going to pop the talisman, stuns onto Moya, swap moving in for Sharp as well. Zonies though does get moved in. Zelda challenges his ultimate. Soul Strikes will cancel it away. The Shockwave coming in but doesn't take anyone, it looks like now. Soul Strikes is going to get aggressive, but here comes Perfection, lining up the perfect spot here for the Rift Walk. King gets the pick onto Naya. It's 1-for-0 so far for the Wolves. Sharp though will go down. He dove in a little too far, but King going to take out the Sentinel. Perfection just biding his time.
It was a nice initiation from Chuffer. Saw that Orianna was split away from the comp, so got her down low. Perfection re-engages. That's a lot of damage.
Jesus, Zaldo's forced to be fence called away. Can't lock him up for long enough. Chuffer actually flashed shots and misses for Perfection. Another kill there. Zaldo will just get away, but the Dials will take an inhibitor.
They'll get at minimum the inhibitor. They'd already prepped down the turret in the previous push. Now take the inhibitor. Baron, it's an option, but Nayab going to be up soon.
I mean, they might just go for it here. Soul Strikes is here. Does not have his smite. Actually just used it on the Wolf Spirit. So it seems like the Dials are going to spend some of their gold instead. Be happy with the push and move back in for a Baron. Or at this point, maybe just the last push.
I mean, the only disadvantage is they will probably lose these pink wards they've set up and prepped around the Baron pit. A ward at a pink ward at the enemy blue, and then 2 pink wards around. This should be an option for Fortnite to clear those out. But in terms of items, in terms of the last 3 or 4 team fights, everything's looking great for the Dire Wolves.
Funny to see Fauna actually kind of chased away by the Wolf Spirit there, so good vision there for the Dire Wolves side. Soul Strike's using that smite to get the buff from the camp, providing a lot of good vision, and those wards have dropped a little bit. I believe the one, no, there it is, still at the blue buff. So good vision still around for Dire Wolves, have gone back and shopped, and they're ready to fight. They'll take the Baron if Fortnite don't come, but they're more than happy if Fortnite want to fight them.
And this is definitely a situation where Kulo needs to teleport in early because they just have no way to get any vision around this Baron. It's just going to be a free Baron.
I mean, they've got the Scrying Orb, but it's on cooldown for a little while longer. Naya going to face check the team, but gets swapped back in. Zaldo just evaporates there from all the damage between Lucian and Kassadin, and now Naya will flash away. Oh, no, just slingshots away, but Moya takes far too much damage. Perfection, a double kill now for his 11th of the match, and Kassadin has taken over this game.
And during that contest, both Kulo and Sanjay were actually on the bottom side of the map, just trying to pick up red buff. Sanjay picks up that buff, but watches his team die. Baron buff, super minions pushing into the base. Fortnite, they had a window. They were looking good in the early. There was some misfires from Sharp in particular on the Urgot. But, I mean, his score's not great, 1-5-5. But with now the Black Cleaver coming through, he's just setting up his other carries to do massive damage.
And Perfection, not even an AD carry, doing plenty of that in this particular game. Next Dragon up in 35 seconds, but the Dire Wolves just don't need it.
No, there's just I mean, Dire Wolves are just in a position to take out this game when they pull the trigger. They need to prep some minion waves. You can see in the top lane the Fortnite's minion wave is pushing out, but with super minions pushing in the mid lane, and now the bottom lane turret's going to fall for the last outer turret on the map. Sorry, no, the top outer turret's still up, but seems almost a formality now for the Dire Wolves.
Yeah, I like the Perfection looking for a flank as well. Did have a ward, but I think knew he was in vision and didn't want to get too aggressive on top of C&J. Tower falling relatively quickly when King gets a chance to free hit on it, but he'll move back in, try and take it out. And Lucian, we talked about it before, that passive very good on the push front.
And while it's good on the push front, it's a 500 range AD carry and a short range team. We already discussed their ranges. Their siege is actually pretty poor, but because they're so strong, because of the fact they've snowballed, they have to respect the potential of a turret dive with all the range CC, so they're still being able to pick up objectives they should not be able to against an Orianna.
No, Baron buff helping out a bit as well, but at this point the Dials are just brute forcing down these structures away from Fauna, and they are, again, running out of base structures to try and give away here. One inhib's already down. This bottom one might fall soon as well.
Yeah, 11,000 is the goal lead. Remember, at one point, this was 4-0 in turrets to Fortnite. Such has been the momentum shift towards Direwolves. The sieging is still very, very difficult. Hilariously, someone's able to push away the Baroned up siege minion. Stops it doing damage to the turret.
A very adorable interaction, but the Direwolves going to continue applying pressure. We'll look to back off here and just take the dragon, I think, realizing that the siege is a little too hard. And Baron buff is running down, so don't have too much of it left to use. Instead, we'll take away what is, at this point, a free objective after all the battling they've done. Only their second, so not a massive win here for the Dials, but that gold lead tells the story. 10,000 gold ahead.
And the statistics that we were discussing also tell a story. 3-1 was the dragon score previously, so already had the third dragon buff well up in terms of turrets. 4-0, 4-1. That was the early turret score. Fortnite were looking like they will be able to take this game, but getting caught twice in transition after taking objectives. I believe the 5th turret was their last time they lost a team fight around the enemy base. They just haven't returned to the enemy base. They've never managed to push their waves out or trade upon all the global gold they brought up. And when a team starts to win team fights and even has all those global objectives to answer in terms of both gold and experience, that's what causes the massive snowball we see in this game.
And it's pretty ridiculous just how unbridled perfection is this game. There is a single locket and a couple merc treads on the Fortnite side for MR. The QSS for C&J there as well, but you can peel off plenty of CC, but you can't peel the Kassadin.
There's just so many statistics to talk about in terms of the Kassadin. 6,000 gold up against his lane opponent is a lot. That's about 3 items. I mean, 2 massive items. You get a Trinity Force Throw and a Void Staff. Of course, those items don't synergize, but that's the gold
together.
values we're talking about in this situation. And just everything looking great. The only person behind is Sharp to some degree versus Orianna, and his build is basically a support tank build.
Yeah, I assume Perfection's going for another Lgends Echo. I think just because it's the only need to see large item
120
left.
AP, that's a nice little stack.
That's all you want. I mean, he's got enough items already. He doesn't need much more as Soul Strike's the very large Poro that he's riding on the back. I assume Elixir of Iron has something to do with that. Kulo almost face plants the wall there. Naya going aggressive there with Perfection not available, but teleporting right into the middle of the team. And C&J, oh my god, gets ulted there. King going to move in, and Perfection does too much damage. Chopper getting low. We'll get the kill there, Moya, but there's a trade coming through as Naya does go down as well. 2 for 1 actually there. Sharp will finally get that other kill. And Perfection just way too much damage. King even gonna dive in. Pops his heel, wants to go in aggressive. Can't chase in any further onwards, but Direwolves just gonna keep taking turrets.
It was 3 members down, only melee champion and Janna up. The turret damage is high. Of course, the turret sieging not great, turret damage high. And that should be the game you'd have to think for Direwolves.
Yeah, plenty of damage to push, and we'll take another inhibitor. In fact, the only one left for them to take right now, and push into the base to try and go for the win. 20 seconds left on 2 members. 15 or so on C&J. Might be Foresight, who King is looking quite aggressive here. Wants, I think, a few more kills to pad that KDA. Zaldo might be added to the tally, but not this time. Turret does go down. Direwolves may have to retreat, but at this point, it is almost academic for the Wolves.
And neither member falling down means they have to respect the short dead time. There's only 5 seconds left for both Naya and Moya. Game doesn't end here, but to be honest, after the last few fights, 14,000 gold lead. The game and the realistic hopes for Fortnite died about 10 minutes ago.
I mean, it's just so tricky. C&J got plenty of good items, can peel off almost anything now with the QSS. Very safe for the most part with his 2 lifesteal items, but what's he going to do?
I mean, he's got the QSS now. If he had got that as a snowball item, it might have been a really important factor just to cancel the threat of the hyperkinetic position reverser coming through from Urgot. But now he needs damage. We've said 2 damage threat comp. We mentioned the fact that he'd gone Bloodthirster, I guess, for a bit of early damage, but needs at least the last Whisper to complement what he's got through, but doesn't have the items to take down a super tank. And Soul Strike's not really a super tank with the build he has, but tanky enough.
I mean, I guess the issue is that you can have your last Whisper, take out your tanks, but just nothing peels Kassadin on Fortnite's team. They've got no lockdown.
Yeah, they've got no lockdown. It's worth mentioning, absolutely. They have situational lockdown, but with that mobility, you're not going to hit an elastic slingshot onto a Kassadin. Can Rift walk away on what is probably now, what, a 2-second, 1.6-second cooldown? They have a lot of CC if the enemy team's group. That's why we talked about the surprise factor of the elastic slingshot as a ball carrying mechanism. But when they're in vision, and to be honest, they can't walk into their own base at this point, so it's always going to be a 5v5 team fight in vision. You just can't set up that wombo on this level 18 massive Cassidy.
And it's so weird to look at these two comps and see the big front line, the good damage threats on Fornot's side, and think that they honestly get outscaled by this Cassidy, but that's the reality. And CNJ just going to get destroyed by Perfection. Still cutting around. The ulti might keep them safe. Perfection actually goes down there. CNJ in a 3v1 claims the shutdown.
A very rare mechanical mistake. Did not use the Zhonya's. Would have bought time for a potential assassination kill with the Rift Walk. Still doing massive damage at this time in the game. They have absolute supremacy around the Baron. It's going to spawn in 1 second. It's up now, and they should be able to rush it down.
Yeah, and that's going to take it. They actually give up on the Scuttle Crab, decided to take the bigger price here instead for the jungle. Perfection will not get it, but Fortnite are actually moving in. They're going to try and take it away. They'll be too late, but it's a 4v4 if they want to go for the fight. But CNJ's not here. Kulo dives into the backline. The ulti moves in. The shockwave does not connect, though. A double ult there from the Glacial Prison there for Sejuani and King. Plenty of damage here with Perfection still dead. Ulti there in for Sharp, just zoning everybody else out. Shuffer gets the kill onto Moya. CNJ now finally here, dances around, gets the kill onto Sharp. King might be the next one, but he's doing good damage. CNJ, though, chasing in there. There's the double kill coming through. Chuffer might make it 3 there for CNJ, and a late party to the Baron, but CNJ claims the victory.
Yeah, one team fight there for Fortnite. Getting there late, but just in time after what was a long, extended fight between a lot of tanky members. You expect these long fights on patch 5.5 with all the extra health values coming through from junglers especially, but the result is a bit of pressure relieved for Fortnite, but not much more.
And you know what? We've definitely seen some aggressive builds from Chopper. We saw the Magi's on his Janna last game, but he has gone well and truly off the deep end this game.
He's definitely got a bevy of fun items. We're going to see a replay coming through. Actually, no, we don't. Never mind.
That is CNJ farming in live. Now he's back farming again. Farmception is happening now for CNJ, and we'll clear them out. He's got the rune and he's got decent damage as far as wave clear goes, but next Dragon coming up, that's the 4th, I believe, for Dials if they pick it up. Again, not super... Oh, 3rd actually only, so Fortnite have done a good job containing it, but even that just doesn't matter because, again, you cannot peel Kassadin.
You cannot peel Kassadin, but what we can try to peel off is the logic behind these items from Annie. So, Twin Shadows, a lot of pick potential from that item. Not commonly seen. Gives a decent amount of AP, so that helps with some assassination. The item I want to focus on is Banner of Command. Think about the wave clear that comes through from Fortnite. It's completely gated around Moya, and the ability to promote a minion that's immune to magic damage might be a very significant thing. So Banner of Command, okay, it's a bit of a fun choice, but it has the Aegis build out of it, so they do have Aegis on all sides of their fights, and it could be relevant in a siege. So not a bad pickup when you have the extra gold.
Yeah, Baron of Command's my favorite thing, so we might see that here from the Direwolves as they move down towards the bottom. King also well and truly off the deep end with his mate Chafra from the bottom lane. Double Phantom Dancer PD Blade Last Whisper.
No room for boots anymore.
Nope, doesn't have time. Has to wear. Not going to fit the swords where? Any
It's
shoes?
the Keith McBrief special. Double Phantom Dancer means so much damage even to the frontline tanks, and Fortnite, they've got those aplenty.
Look at the promoted minion. I mean, this is the point of it.
Who's going to kill it?
It looks silly. Exactly. CNJ
Look at the ball. It's doing nothing.
Just sitting there. We'll finally go down there and just enough damage there to poke it off. Ulti there popped by King, shooting out so many bolts as Chopper.
The Spooky Ghost came out as well.
Yeah, there's the Twin Shadows being popped. He's in there, Chopper with a Righteous Gorian as well. They just want to buy time for the turret. Neither. He's going to move in. Ultimate comes in there, 3-man stun. There's a good knock up there onto 2 as Chopper will go down, but King of Perfection still moving in. Perfection will not be stopped in this game. Just ripping through people if he can get back in. He can go in whenever he likes. There's CNJ probably going to... He's actually in the back. They're going to kill Moya for the next one. Might look in there as he moves through. Still aggressive there. Gets the next kill. Gets knocked up. Actually going to go down, but King more than enough to clean them out. Kulo, the only man left, and the Direwolves in some pretty interesting fashion will finish off the game.
But I mean, the one other thing to mention, Perfection, just one spell rotation explodes CNJ, even with the Mercurial Scimitar completed. With enough people, Sion, what's a man to do? Very tanky, but can't stop all this damage, and it should be the victory for the Direwolves.
And it will. They're going to finish their season strong here. Fortnite couldn't get the first game. Going to have to look for their second of this evening that's coming up shortly, but Kulo going to try and take them up. Eventually, they'll be able to get it. King, again, trying to add a couple more kills to his tally. It's the last game of the season. He wants to make sure he keeps the kills nice and high for himself, but the Direwolves a rough game, honestly, a rough 2 games for them, but they do eventually pick up the win.
It's important to note they had locked in second place. They were probably trying some strategies, just trying to see what works, what doesn't work. Extra information and mind games against the enemies that they'll be facing in the playoffs could be very relevant. So they've tried out some new champions. Don't know if we'll be seeing the Urgot again or some of the champions from the first game, but the result is a victory for the Direwolves.
And we do have a replay here again, so we'll see just what the Direwolves got up to in this very long game.
So this is the point where Direwolves had started to get a bit of advantage. They had been further behind previously, but they started to get some turrets back in the game. Still behind in turrets, it's 5-3. A small gold lead, but Perfection's already 7-0-3 at this point. It was the previous team fight where Perfection had really, I believe, got triple kill and started to get really snowballed. So we'll roll the tape. Fortnite very much focusing on the Dragon, take it down almost instantly, then go for this engage. You just have to watch Perfection. This is why I talked about Perfection zoning. CNJ and Orianna are the only damage threats worth considering, and they never commit to this fight because Kassadin's never gone into it. So Fortnite, they're going to do consistent DPS. Naya dies without CNJ or Orianna really committing to the fight, and just wait for Perfection. Gets into the backline, does so much AoE damage, would have taken down the support if not for the Fate's Call. And this Perfection's someone they can't deal with, even with Janna. Again, this is the point we already brought up. Janna can't peel a Kassadin, and the result is carnage for Kassadin.
Yeah, I didn't even notice the sick 3-man ult there from Sharp.
Didn't matter.
It just didn't matter at all. Perfection far too strong there in that game. And again, a lovely game to end the season for the Wolves. Chopper especially, just doing some things with the items. But that will end the Wolves, but we still have more games to come up here. Immunity versus Legacy. A massive match as we move towards the playoffs. Both teams are in, but what positions are they sitting in?